they're using my veteran status against me, saying, well, hey, we better check into this guy to make sure, he's not nuts, because we don't want to be living next door to him, and if he is, then we got to do something.
So even though you haven't broke any laws,
right,
there was no charges, none at all, nothing. They found him completely innocent of everything. A judge is ordering him legally to produce this stuff.
Yep.
All right, I'm pretty nervous. Basically, I stumbled across this guy. He's dealing with the tyrannical government. I'm going to be interviewing him. It's to the point to where they keep asking more and more ridiculous stuff, to where as of March 1st, his next court date, he's going to stop complying, and he's probably going to go to jail, and he hasn't broken any laws. They tried going after him criminally, and they couldn't. I'll pretty much save the story for him to tell it so I don't botch up the details, but let's call him real quick, make sure he's awake. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of expected this guy's house to be like in town or someplace where it wouldn't be safe to shoot. We are out in the middle of nowhere. So anyway, Rich, tell me about yourself. My name's Matt.
Nice to meet you, Matt. So, my name's Rich Clewien. I see this is gonna be awkward, huh?
It doesn't matter.
Right. So I spent 6 years in the United States Army. I was a combat infantryman, done 2 combat deployments, got out and done all kinds of different things. I've been an electrician, I've worked for a vet clinic, been a corrections officer, and I moved back home and enjoy being around my family and the support that that provides, and here we are.
Right on.
Why did I move into this house? And when? I've been here for about 2 years. I kind of had some criteria for looking for a place. One of the things was I wanted at least 10 acres. I'd like to raise some cattle and just have some space to be able to enjoy my hobbies. And
I noticed you got a fireplace. That's something I definitely wanted for my house and failed to get.
Yep, absolutely. I think it's neat being able to, power goes out or whatever, you have the ability to, stay warm and cook food and that sort of thing. And I know it's kind of primitive, but it's important to me. I got a 46 by 70 shop. I'm into woodworking, and I do all my own kind of maintenance on vehicles and that sort of thing.
So basically this place is pretty permanent. You have no intentions of moving.
Right. Yeah. I grew up
set your roots down.
I grew up living living with my parents. We didn't move around. They had a trailer on their property before they built their house, and I've got a mobile, and my wife and I's game plan is to eventually build a house on this property and just make it our own.
Yeah, it's crazy. Actually, when I was looking for his house, I was expecting it to be like in town or someplace close to people. But yeah, he's out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, that was part of it too, is to kind of be out in the sticks a little bit, so we have some privacy, and we can enjoy just being out.
Privacy's nice.
Yep, it absolutely is. Why do I choose to carry a firearm? Well, I believe first and foremost that ultimately my personal safety and the safety of my family is my responsibility.
Sure.
Usually, the police officers respond to calls. They're not going to be there to prevent a crime.
It's not possible.
Nope, it's absolutely not. And nobody, I don't think anybody can go through life expecting that to be the way things play out. The old saying goes, law enforcement's minutes away when seconds count, and
it's true.
It absolutely is, and that's. I know it's terrifying for some people to think that, hey, I might have to, use up to and including deadly force, to defend my life or lives of my loved ones. And
Yeah, because no one wants to, but you got to have the option.
no, absolutely not. You know, being a combat vet, some of the things that you see, you know, overseas they're really real. And you know, I think you know, anybody who hasn't been there, you don't know what it is until you have to go through it. And
Sure.
and I would hope that, you know, I never have to use a firearm to, you know, defend my life or anybody else's. But the reality of the world we live in is it could happen. No different than having an airbag in your car or a fire extinguisher in your home. That firearm is you know, it's a tool to ensure your safety.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Do I feel that there's any reason why my neighbors should be concerned for their safety with me living here? Absolutely not. I understand that I'm a pretty private person. You know, some of them have come over and said hi when I first bought the place, and you know, one of them has met my wife and I, and the other ones have met me, and they know my family. My parents are pretty well known in town. My dad's a hunter safety instructor and a retired corrections officer. My mom she's got a beauty salon. So everybody knows who we are. Princeton's pretty small.
Sure.
Do I feel that the first time I met my neighbors that it went negatively in any way, shape, or form? Absolutely not. Glovers over across the way. I met the husband and one of their children. They stopped over shortly after I bought the place, and we introduced ourselves. And you know, they said that they're hunters, and you know, I kind of let them know who I am, and that, you know, I like to shoot and that sort of thing. Actually, the people that are suing us, the Hayashis, John stopped over the day that I was moving my vault into the house with my mom and dad, and he actually gave us a suggestion on how to get it out of the bed of my truck and get it into the house.
Did you meet them right away when you moved in?
I would say maybe it was a couple of weeks after I had, you know, closed on the house, and
I'd call it right away.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it wasn't like a year later or 6 months later or anything.
Because how long have you lived here total?
Right about 2 years.
Okay. Do you feel you're proficient / trained to handle firearms safely?
Absolutely. I've got a pretty extensive background, having been a combat infantryman. So I've handled everything from belt-fed automatic weapons to 40mm grenade launchers, M4 platform, AK-47s, all that sort of stuff.
All the ones you have in the house, you have ample trigger time on?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You understand the ballistics, trajectories,
Yep.
penetration power?
Yep. And that's something that I pride myself in, is the amount of knowledge that I've sought out as a firearm owner. Certainly you don't want to be walking around, you know, concealed carrying and be running full metal jackets in your
Right
daily
on.
carry. You know what I mean? You have to understand what the ballistics of that round are, and velocities and penetration capabilities for you know, different things, and that's important. I think more people should be aware of that.
Oh, exactly. They really should.
Yep.
When was your first negative encounter with your neighbors about shooting firearms specifically?
I would say the first time that law enforcement was called. Again, they've never come over and said, hey, you know, we're having a birthday party or something. Can you guys, you know, tone it down or not shoot on this day or, you know, what have you. It just immediately started with law enforcement showing up and saying...
Just, they showed up out of the blue. There was no preamp, no
Nope.
warning,
Nope.
nothing.
Nope. Nobody called and said, hey, you know, knock it off or hey, can you... Nothing. They just started with calling law enforcement, and that's the way it kept on going, and actually it's still going.
Aside from law enforcement, what was the first legal action they took? And did the law enforcement actually do anything then? Like, when they came in, did they find anything wrong with what you were doing? Any criminal records? Anything wrong with any of your firearms? Anything at all?
So did law enforcement ever have any issues with what we were doing? Nope. If, you know, as you saw pulling up, you kind of walk between the house and the shop, and then you come back up on the deck where we shoot from. Yeah, I mean, we, you know, even position the range where there's nothing behind that in terms of people's homes or structures or anything. No, law enforcement's come out and they walk, you know, right back up on the deck, and we're sitting there barbecuing and hanging out and having a good time. And they never have a problem with anything. It's, you know, all of our firearms are sitting out. Everything we're doing is transparent. They've never had an issue with anything any of the times they've been out.
How many times have they come out before things escalated?
I would guess at least at least a dozen, if not more, before they started saying, law enforcement was like, hey, they're saying it's a safety issue now. They're concerned about this, that, and another. Initially it was noise complaints. They didn't like listening to it. The Rod and Gun Club is not even a mile from here.
Can you hear it from here?
Absolutely. Yeah, you can hear them when they're shooting league and this, that, and another. Other people in the neighborhood shoot. One of my neighbors shoots, you know what I mean, right over by us. One of the people that actually was a witness in court, they were shooting one of the days when law enforcement was out here to conduct an investigation of our range. And
so you think the noise ordinance thing is pretty ridiculous?
yeah, well, the thing is there is no noise. The noise ordinance is, we're outside of city limits.
I didn't even think there was one outside of city limits.
It's 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. That's Wisconsin state law, and that's what we're expected to abide by. And we're not shooting at 6 o'clock in the morning, and we're not shooting at 11 o'clock at night. We have people out here that hunt coyotes, and you know what I mean? They're shooting at.
Yeah, because you can coyote hunt whenever.
Yep, absolutely.
After the police had stopped over several times and they decided to take legal action, what was the legal action actually legitimately about, and what legal action did they take? Like, what are the steps they went through? How did things escalate? How did it progress? How did we get to where we are right now?
So, my wife and I got served with papers, a lawsuit.
Was it out of the blue, or did you know?
We didn't know. We had law enforcement show up and serve us with papers. We got a cease and desist, where we were told that if there were any firearms discharged on this property, whether it was by my wife and I or anybody else, that we would be arrested. And then we had a court appearance after that, and their attorney said, well, we'll allow them to shoot or this is what we'd like to see. We'll allow them to shoot Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And pistols only, to which we are currently under those restrictions and we've been abiding by.
So are they talking about like handgun pistols or legal pistol, or did they define it, or did they just say pistol?
They said pistol, period.
So do you think if we were to shoot like an AR pistol out there, they'd start complaining?
They actually did. And I actually had to explain to law enforcement, they had said, well, myself and anybody else that would look at that would think that that's a rifle. And I said, well, here's what the ATF says about it, and they're the governing body for this. And I laid out all the laws as far as length of pull and the pistol brace and barrel length and grips and that sort of thing, to try to educate them so they know. That's something that's huge, is empowering people with knowledge.
Right.
So
now, what was the actual you got subpoenaed, right?
Well,
served.
Yep.
What was the actual served for? Like, what was the legal document? Like, what were they pulling you to court for?
There was like 9 different things. So they're talking about property damage to their trees, depositing heavy metals on their property.
Littering? Really?
Well, yeah. I mean, so they're saying, well, you put copper and lead out on our property, so we're not happy about that, and you damaged our trees. And then a nuisance. They said that we created a private nuisance. Now, I don't know. I mean, if you wake up every day and you abide by the law in terms of a noise ordinance, I don't see what else am I supposed to do other than wake up and not break the law?
Right.
And we definitely weren't. Law enforcement has found nothing to charge us with. They even took this to the district attorney, and they didn't have anything to charge us with. So the next step they went to was taking it to the town board, and the town board voted to do nothing about nothing. And again, here we are.
What did they actually bring up on the town board?
They wanted to do like a firearms safety plan, shooting.
Gun restricted, basically.
Yep. They didn't want us to be able to use suppressors, or they said 50 gauge guns, which I don't know what a 50 gauge gun is, but
I'm gonna look into that one.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds terrifying, and I think they should ban those. So, yep, they didn't want us to be able to shoot suppressors on our property. They didn't want us to be able to shoot high caliber rifles. They didn't specify anything. Their terminology was very vague, and they didn't sound like they really knew what they were trying to stop people from shooting.
Now, was this against you specifically, or they wanted the whole? Well, how could it even be a town ordinance because you're not in town?
They wanted to do it for the whole township. They wanted to make this across the board for everybody.
Just a gun-free town.
Pretty much, yep. So that would eliminate all the deer hunters. You know what I mean? The guy that's suing us has like 12 different deer stands that you can see from the GIS viewer, like Google Maps, on his property.
Now back to the trees. Like, that's the only thing that stuck, right? Everything else was just pushed away?
No, this judge is actually, I mean, he's upholding everything that they're saying without any evidence. The thing is, you know, law enforcement came out and I allowed them full access to my property, or my wife and I's property, and, you know, facilitated their investigation in any way that I could. I've always been cooperative with them because I have no reason not to be. And
the trees though, like, that's the main thing, or
yeah, so again, the private nuisance, and then the
yeah,
damage.
but what can you do about private nuisance?
Right. Again, we're not breaking the law. I don't. You know, my wife and I work third shift for the Department of Corrections, and you know, we sleep during the day. We're not complaining about farmers being out, you know, doing their activities in the fields and going about their business. You know, when the neighbors decide to mow their lawn for however long during the day, we're not complaining about any of that. Their dogs barking at midnight because they're out for a fish fry or wherever they are, but you know what I mean? We're not complaining about anything. The only time I've ever called law enforcement on anybody was after all this started, and one of them was standing on their property taking pictures of me on our property, which, I mean, I have a reasonable expectation of privacy, even though you can see our property from the road. And
I think there's laws against that. Something about a peeping Tom.
Right. Yep. So, you know, and then they've got drone pictures that they've brought into court, and you know, they say that they know what our schedule is, and that's how they know there's people out here shooting when we're not here. Well, that's the other thing is they said that that we had a shooting range, or a shooting range in our shop, and that we're basically running a commercial range out here, and there's people coming out whenever, you know, when we're not home. They said they know when we're home and when we're not, and there's people out here that people coming out here when we're not home. Which, if that's the case, nobody's ever been invited to do that.
Yeah, right.
And we're not running a commercial range. We like to shoot firearms. Like,
so now, obviously, you can't do anything about the nuisance and stuff. There's nothing you can do.
Right.
But obviously, the trees, there was something you can do. Did you try to come to any resolution or try to solve the problem?
law enforcement told us, by the time this got to the point that it did with the lawsuit and everything, they told us not to contact them. They said these people, it would be a bad idea if you go over there and say anything at this point. They don't want you to, you know, to communicate with them or to do anything. So we just said, okay. You know, and then again, the next thing that I believe we got served after that. So.
But did you offer to, like, pay for the damages of the trees or anything in court?
No, because they haven't proven anything. That's the other thing is, so they brought all this stuff to court. Green Lake County Sheriff's Department has done their investigation,
Okay.
taken pictures, azimuths, but everything. And they've said that there's nothing that they can charge us with. You know, there's no criminal damage to property because there's no evidence. There's no proof that my wife and I damaged their property. Law enforcement conducted an investigation and said
They just washed it all away.
they said you guys deal with it, or whatever the case was. But they said we're not going to charge them with anything because we haven't found any laws that they've broken.
Do you feel you've been treated fairly?
Absolutely not.
Try not to smile.
So I actually just for argument's sake, I was like, what happens if I Google what to do when I have a problem with my neighbors? Well, they listed like 8 steps, and it definitely didn't say the first thing or the second. In fact, the last 2 items on that list were call law enforcement and file a civil suit. It didn't say sue your neighbors or call the cops on them right away.
Didn't they do a article in the paper too?
They did. It was the Princeton Times-Republic. They did an article on the meeting. They brought up the firearm safety ordinance that these people's attorney had submitted to the town board, and again they voted. 2 out of the 3 people voted to do nothing about nothing. They said this isn't anything that we're going to do anything about because we don't see anything wrong here. In fact, that town board meeting, my wife and I went to that, and that's the first time we've ever been to one, and nobody from the complaining parties showed up at all.
Really?
Nope. In fact, we had heard through various people in the community. I don't want to out anybody, so I'm not going to say any names.
Quiet.
But they had said that, hey, don't go to this. These people are gonna come in there and they're gonna shoot it up. So there was actually 2 roving patrols outside, a Princeton police officer and a Green Lake County sheriff, and then there was an armed sheriff's deputy in the town hall meeting.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I mean, we were sitting there, and I was sitting next to a guy and talking to him. He had no idea who we even were. And I mean, again, we showed up, and nobody else from, again, the people that are complaining about this didn't show up to express interest in it. They just submitted their document through their attorney to the town board, and they went over it and voted not to do anything about it because they didn't see an issue.
Now, from what I understand, they kept asking for things and trying to make it so you wouldn't comply, and they've eventually hit a point where you've drawn the line in the sand where you're not going to comply anymore. So what exactly are they asking for that you're not willing to comply with, and are you prepared to go to jail, and when would you go to jail if you don't comply?
So they do what's called discoveries. You have to answer questions, and it's any information that could be discoverable. So the big 3 things that they keyed in on, and there was a whole list of them, and we answered some of them because we felt that it was fair, to give them information that they were seeking.
Even though this isn't a criminal thing.
Right, this is a civil suit. So the big 3 things that they keyed in on when we went to court this last Thursday was they wanted access to my VA medical records,
Okay.
my military service records. They wanted an inventory list of our firearms that we have in our house, and any and all receipts from, I believe it was Fleet Farm, for ammo that we've purchased.
Now, they just specifically said Fleet Farm, or they wanted you to bring bank records and show...
They want our bank records. And when we answered discovery questions, they're like, well, where have you bought ammo from? They wanted online stuff and this, that, and another to, like, I mean, I don't know if they thought we were buying pallets of ammo from somewhere, because they say that we've shot a whole lot more than what we actually have. And again, there's no laws against ammo possession limits or how much you can shoot in a day.
Yeah, this isn't California.
Right, yeah, no, it's definitely not. So we said, well, I'm sitting there trying to think, I'm like, where have I bought ammo from in the last year? Well, Fleet Farm. And they're like, okay, well, we want all your receipts from Fleet Farm. And I'm like...
Because I saved those.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, and they're on, every receipt now for the most part is on like that heat set stuff. So after it goes through the washer or dryer, or it's gone anyway. And
right.
I don't know. I don't save receipts from ammo, just like I don't save receipts from dog food or lettuce or eggs.
Yeah, because you can't return it.
Right.
Ammo is a non-returnable product.
Yep,
you can
exactly.
never return it. Even if you walk out of the store with the box of ammo and then walk right back in, they're not going to take it back because you might have loaded ammo specifically to explode in a firearm. So you could be an anti-gunner, you take the box out, and then come back and return your box that's going to blow up guns.
Yep,
it's just not safe.
A double charge in a pistol round will absolutely result in very bad things happening to you in that firearm. Yep.
So now, from what I understand, you drew your line in the sand, though. You're not complying at this point.
So our attorney advised this against, because I'd expressed to him, I said, hey, I don't want to willingly violate my Fourth Amendment rights. And my civil liberties. The whole point of having rights and having is to not have them broken in the first place. You know what I mean? I can't believe that a judge would say, well, we're going to order you to do this because this person says so. Basically, the reason why they want my medical records is to make sure they're not living next door to some crazy person. They're using my veteran status against me, saying, well, hey, we better check into this guy to make sure he's not nuts because we don't want to be living next door to him. And if he is, then we got to do something.
So even though you haven't broke any laws,
right.
There was no charges, none at all, nothing. They found him completely innocent of everything. A judge is ordering him legally to produce this stuff.
Yep. And the reason why I don't want to, again, is because I don't want to self-violate my own rights, and my wife doesn't want to either. Everything their attorney has asked for, this judge has ordered that we give to them. I mean, even though our attorney put in a protective order for my medical records, which are also protected by HIPAA. They're federally protected. It's federally protected information. And the right to privacy of your personal effects, which would be, our firearms. My wife and I don't want to give up that information. We don't want to willingly violate our rights, but this judge has ordered that we do so. And at this point, I believe we'll have another court date around March 1st, and I really hope that we can find an attorney or a group or find some kind of resource to help us protect ourselves, and the information that should be protected anyway. You know, who would want to give up their medical records? Like, I don't have anything to hide, but I don't want. Why would I want to put that out in the public eye for them to, you know what I mean, to twist and manipulate, or to even just to have that information? Nobody would want that. Why should I comply with that? And so if I don't produce that information, if my wife and I don't produce that information, we're going to be held in contempt of court. Now, I don't know what that means in terms of what's going to happen to me, but I am absolutely willing to go sit in a jail cell over self-violating our rights. I do not believe for one second that I should have to violate my Fourth Amendment rights or any of my civil liberties, and nor does my wife. And that's a hard thing to say. I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'm not out, to break the law or to not comply with the things that are asked of me. Again, I've been completely honest and forthcoming with law enforcement about everything, and done everything I can facilitate their investigation. But I'm at a point where, again,
you can only take so much, and you got to draw the line in the sand, because if you don't, you'll keep getting pushed back and back and back and back. And even though these people are trying to make you a criminal because you annoyed them.
Mm-hmm. And that's really what this boils down to, is they're annoyed. They don't want to listen to gunfire. Well, I don't want to listen to your lawnmower or your sander or whatever, but I do, because we live out in the country, and that's just it comes with the territory.
It does.
God forbid somebody else makes some noise that you don't like,
And what other noise can you possibly make? I mean, seriously, like any other noise at all besides like doing reckless driving on the road, where a judge would order criminal or medical records, inventory of all the firearms bank records.
From what I understand, my understanding of the law, it would be difficult for, even if this was a criminal case, it would be difficult for law enforcement or a judge to gain access to my medical records or an inventory of our firearms. Like, that would be difficult in my understanding, because those things are so highly protected by the Fourth Amendment and your civil liberties. But here we are, and we're being ordered by a judge to produce these documents. And everybody that I've talked to about this in the community, there are so many people that are supportive of us and can't believe this is happening. They're like, how did this even make its way into court? How is this judge ordering this, let alone, you know what I mean?
When I seen your Facebook video, my heart dropped. When I seen how close you were to me, I nearly shit myself, because you're right in my backyard. And
the big thing with all this is bigger than my wife and I. This will go forward, the way this is decided and the way that this is allowed to proceed will go forward and set precedents for future cases. You know what I mean?
No doubt.
That's how the legal system works. They go, hey, here are the circumstances with this case, and here's how it was decided, and they're going to use that against other people. And we don't want anybody else to have to fight this fight. We don't want to fight it ourselves. We don't believe that it should be here. We think it's unreasonable. They should have came over and talked to us. They should have approached us or used a mediator. But the way that they've gone about it is it's not reasonable. I don't think anybody would want this to happen to them.
After seeing your range, no.
No, yeah, I mean, we've taken so many different steps. We've limited our shooting hours on our own, and told law enforcement, hey, tell them, we'll only shoot these days, or this, from this time to this time. We've stopped shooting at rifle distance when we heard that it was a safety concern, and then that wasn't good enough. So then we went and took down the targets that were out there so they wouldn't think we were shooting at them.
So what's the story with the tires?
So we were going to use tires as berm stabilization to help hold up the height and to allow us to achieve.
I see that at a lot of ranges.
Yep. So somebody called the Department of Natural Resources, and we got a letter in the mail from the DNR saying, hey, there's been a report of a large amount of tires being deposited on your property. What's going on with this? So we contacted the DNR and said, here's what our game plan is. Here's why we have them. Here's what we're going to do with them. And they said, you're going to have to apply for a permit. It's $500 for some kind of a high volume, low waste or something like that. But they led me to believe that that $500 application was probably not going to get approved. So I asked them, I said, well, all right, you're basically saying that we can't do this. What do you want us to do? And they told us that we have to dispose of the tires in accordance with the law and provide them with documentation. So my mom and dad and my uncle and my wife and I and some of our friends, we loaded up every single last tire, and we trucked them all the way to Auburndale to Liberty Tire Recycling. We paid just a little over $2,000 between fuel and disposal costs to get rid of these tires. We did the right thing because that's what we've been trying to do with all this.
Right.
They didn't end up on some back county road or something like that, or getting burned somewhere. We did exactly what the DNR wanted us to do. We provided the DNR with documentation, and they were satisfied and thanked us for doing the right thing.
So not only do they not want you to shoot, they're even attacking the ways to make you shoot safer, so when you do shoot, it's safer.
Right. I mean, we thought that was a great idea. I looked at the EPA's website, and apparently what the federal government thinks is an okay way to use a problem item like old tires, the Wisconsin DNR doesn't agree with. And so we were wrong, and we made it right.
That's really good of you, though.
What else do you do? Again, you wake up every day and try not to break the law, and you don't. And
All right, so explain to me what we're looking at here.
okay, well, this is our back deck. They describe it in their lawsuit as our improvised shooting platform. And part of the reason why we shoot from the deck is, well, because we're out here barbecuing and stuff during the summer, and it's elevated, so when we're shooting, you're shooting down at an angle.
So where are you currently limited to shooting to?
Right here. This is 34 to 38 feet off the deck. Just these targets right here. No further than this berm right here is what we're allowed to shoot, and pistols only.
At what time?
We're 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Monday through Friday is when we're allowed to discharge firearms on our property, unless it's in defense of our lives or what have you.
And what were the houses that said crazy stuff?
So that house right there, which was built after we bought the property.
I'll show it on Google Earth.
And then over here.
Where I don't. Oh, there's a house. That yellow one.
Yep. And then I think you can kind of see through the trees the actual people that are suing us, like way over that way.
I'm not sure. There's definitely a structure over there, but I can't, like, if it was summer, I wouldn't be able to see the structure at all.
No, you wouldn't. So
how can people help you? How can they get a hold of you? What do you want them to do? Because people are going to see this, and they're going to want to do something. I mean, your story is heartbreaking. They just want to do something. What would you advise people to do?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, knowledge is power. The best thing that you can do, and I think one of the best things that we've done, is research what your laws are. Know what your noise ordinances are. Know what the law is. So that way, when you go about your day, you can risk mitigate. Getting in trouble. Like don't go out haphazardly and think that you can do this and think that you can do that without knowing what the law says about it. Because somebody might have a problem with what you're doing, and you might wind up in a pinch. As far as things that people could do to help with this, on top of that, write letters. Write emails to Wisconsin congressmen and tell them how you feel about this and what you think about it, and what your standpoint is on not only our case, but just the assault on the Second Amendment in even the state of Wisconsin. You got to say something. You can't be silent and hide behind a tree or whatever, because eventually they're going to come for you and your rights. After the Second Amendment, if the Second Amendment, God forbid, were ever to be abolished, they're going to come for your cheeseburgers and everything else. And then what are you going to do? Right.
And I feel you, man. Your story really related with me because I had something similar happen to me when I was younger. My dad's property was landlocked in. There was a main road that goes through. There was a neighbor that lived here, and our house was right here. He owned all the property surrounding us, and we didn't own like a half acre. We owned 7 acres. We had a proper berm set up. We were shooting on a downhill angle. It was not possible for the bullets to go anywhere else. every time we shot, a cop would show up. Or, like, he could just go from his house, go on the road, come over and talk to us. He would crawl through a marsh. I'm assuming he had a raft set up because he had to cross a little pond. Then he would crawl through marsh, go through some woods, and come up almost directly in front of where we're shooting. Be like, hey, what are you guys doing? And we're like, we've been out here for like 3 hours shooting. There's no way you were just out there or you would have talked to us a lot longer. You went from your house, you spent all of that time tracking around so you could just come out right in front of us. That's your fault. Unfortunately, my dad wasn't a fighter. He was a don't rock the boat kind of guy, and he was like, okay, just stop shooting here. So, but if I would have lived there, that would have been a fight I would have went through.
And the thing too is, one thing that their attorney, he's been very aggressive, and especially towards me. I assume to try to get a reaction out of me in court, which I'm not. No. They've said, well, what does your homeowner's insurance policy say about this, or whatever, and we're like, well, I don't know. I mean, it's rural Wisconsin. I believe that you could shoot firearms on your property and not have your homeowner's insurance yanked out from underneath you.
Right.
So they've kind of, by doing this, they've put everything on hold. Now, our homeowner's insurance, from my understanding, doesn't have a problem with discharging firearms on our property, but in some places they do. Simply owning firearms and not having them, having a separate insurance policy for them can put you in a pinch with that. But for them to threaten that and try to basically say, hey, your homeowner's insurance might not cover you for this, or drop you because of this incident, that means that we could lose our home. My wife and I they could foreclose on us because we wouldn't have insurance.
Yeah,
that's terrifying. That's terrifying. I'm not trying to move. I didn't move around as a kid, and you know what I mean. My parents put their feet on the ground, and they've been at the same place since I was born.
Well, yeah, stable living conditions are important.
Yep, absolutely. And this is our home. This is our property, and this is where we want to stay. We're close to all of our support network in terms of family and friends, and we don't want to be forced to leave our home because somebody trumped up some story and made it to be something that it's not.
I had the same issue with homeowners insurance myself. I found out they only covered $1,000 with firearms. I tried expanding it. They wanted serial numbers, pictures, stuff like that. And I'm like, I buy and sell firearms. I don't want to fall behind and get one in that's worth $5,000 and then tomorrow it burns up. What I want is an umbrella coverage of $10,000 or so for firearms, and then if something happens, I can take it out. And they're like, no, not going to happen. And I tried going to different companies, and yeah, there's no options. I'm going to have to switch homeowners insurance completely and go with a more expensive one because, what is it, Geico? They do offer umbrella insurance, and none of the other little companies do. But anyway, I really appreciate the chat.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you coming out today, and this has been awesome. If anybody's got any questions or anything, feel free to either contact Matt, and he can relay to me, or I've got a Facebook account. We talked about things that people can do, and one of the first things is people want to, how can I financially assist you guys? Again, that's not what we're looking for here at all. There's other resources that we can go after for that. The biggest thing is, again, educate yourselves, know what the law is, so you can protect yourself. And if you want to, write an email, write a letter to Wisconsin congressman and tell them about this incident, or tell them about how you feel about firearm ownership, and make your voice be heard. That's huge. It's just letting people know how you feel about things. Especially the ones that are in a position to affect change on it. And that starts with you.
So basically, you're court-ordered. You can't shoot a firearm on your own property with a professional berm there.
No. Nope.
If you are his neighbors and you would like me to interview you, I can do that. I understand every story has two sides. You can contact me in this video in the comments section. You can Instagram me. You can send me a private message on Facebook. You could even call the store and ask for me, and I will get a hold of you, and we will set up an interview. Maybe you have a problem with the guy because he likes to exercise his Second Amendment right in an American flag banana hammock, and you're just tired of seeing Mr. Johnson being waved around. I get it, but you have to understand, this video isn't about you. you guys are going after something you don't like within accordance of the law. As far as I see it, there's no problem there. Where I see the problem is with the judge. We put people in positions of power to referee this sort of things. Yeah, you're pushing hard. That's the American way. I get it. You got to go after your goals. If you don't fight for what you want, you will never achieve them. The judge, unless there's something I missed, and I'm fully prepared to do an interview with you if you're the judge, maybe somehow this case went to criminal, but I'll CCAP the guy and put what I find right here. But as far as I know, this is just a civil case. Because it's a civil lawsuit case, yes, I am not a legal expert, but I don't need to be a legal expert to smell bullshit. What this should have been about is, okay, all these other complaints, there's obviously nothing we can do about it. If it's really that big of a deal, you can file a restraining order or harassment charges, and then we'll move it into a criminal case, and then we can pursue them. The only thing that's relevant, that I see anyway, again, I'm not a legal expert, but you don't need to be one to smell bullshit, is a property damage. That they had claimed some of his bullets had went wide and damaged a tree or two. What they should have done is prorated those trees, what they would be worth as pulp, been like, hey, this is the amount, you have damaged our property, we would like you to pay that. You should have went forward with legal action to see that it gets paid, and that's where it should have stopped. Pay for the property damage, end of story. That's it. So anyway, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. If you'd like to help support the channel, you can go in the description and click on my affiliate links. You don't even have to buy what the link's for. Just by clicking on the link and buying bullshit you were already going to buy, I get a kickback for it because you went there off of my link. Or you can also click on my Patreon. If you'd like to check out any of my other videos, here's a couple of links up here. Again, don't forget to subscribe.